There you go.
Breakfast every morning. People are different. So I'm going to share two intros here. One is like me, melancholy Sue, and my staid nature, whatever. And the other is going to be my husband. Okay. So I'm going to imitate him in a moment. So actually, I'll start with him first and then I'll do mine. Maybe. How you doing? Is that yourself? You've been looking really good. Tell me how you've been doing. What's been going on? How you enjoying your life, eh? Hi. How are things? That's nice. How you doing? Yeah? Okay. Really? Okay. So you can have the gregarious, outgoing, friendly, sanguine, happy personality or whatever. And if that's your natural bent, that's good for you. I have tried to imitate my husband and what he does, and it usually falls flat for me. So this is my official welcome to the channel. My name is Sue Johnston. I'm a retired counselor, wife, and mummy. Although I'm more wife than mom these days because the kids are all launched, and ideally that's what you want to do. Raise them up, send them off, enjoy them. Maybe enjoy them more now. I will be sharing some journal notes regarding life principles, specifically complacency and also the need to move forward into goals. And I'm going to be sharing where I'm at with my knitting, what's been going on, what am I working on, and I actually have a little confession regarding knitting. So stay tuned, enjoy the journey. I'm going to share from my journal notes a life principle first, and then I'll talk about what I'm working on knitting wise, which hopefully maybe inspires you a little bit. It's living life. So sometimes we examine ourselves in the mirror, we look in there, and we consider what we might change, rearrange, or try to ease it into some form of perfection, which we know we can't reach, but we try it anyway. We cover a blemish, we highlight our eyes, we add color to our cheeks, we part our hair, we try to make it smooth, or maybe we just sort of finger it a little bit and fluff it up and see what happens there. Me, man, I haven't got a lot of hair these days, but anyway. While we do these things, we examine ourselves. We might be asking some internal questions, like, what will I do today? What have I got on the schedule? What do I have to do today? Is there someone somewhere expecting me to do something for them? Now, here's a good question. I like this one. And I confess, I don't know that I asked myself this question, but it's a good one. I should tape it to my mirror or something. What do I want for myself in this day? And that can be an important question, because if you can figure it out, if you have an answer, maybe you can actually fulfill it and gain a sense of satisfaction at the end of the day. So we look in the mirror, we examine ourselves, and then here's what happens. We go away and we kind of forget what we examined. We forget about what we're thinking on. We sort of forget our image. Life runs its course. Things happen, and we go with the flow. No real plan. Or if we have a plan, we may allow ourselves to become complacent. We allow ourselves to become settled with the status quo. Well, this is what I got, so I might as well flow with it. Okay. We become sometimes what I call reactors. You ever seen anybody get angry? Okay. That's a reaction. Or maybe we suddenly it rains and we react to that. Whatever happens, we respond. And sometimes we really have to respond. And other times it's like anger is something that happens that maybe it's not necessarily a good reaction. Or life continues on and we become complacent, accepting our usual routine. Nothing really is exciting. We just go along with it, whatever that may be. So I heard the story of a 73-year-old woman who had her pension but still needed to work. So she sort of lamented that a little bit, but I think in our day and age, that's probably a fairly common uh, response to senior living. And we're working not just for income, some are, but other people are working because it's something to do. Anyway, so her income paid her rent and utility bills and put food on the table. Her life routine was get up, go to work, return home, have dinner, watch TV, go to bed, and repeat. So she said all she was doing was working and sitting in her apartment. So she was working hard to get the money in order to keep the apartment so she could sit there, roof over her head. Important. All right. Okay. But that was her complacent status quo. And she became dissatisfied with it. God bless her. She sold everything that she had in her apartment. She bought an old school bus. She recruited the help of a friend to help her outfit the bus. So she set the twin size bed in one side of the bus, and the other side she had a counter space for cooking and a sink with running water, which was actually very simple. You can buy these little pumps at Amazon and you touch them and the water will come out. And so she had a drainage system and what they call gray water going into a container underneath that she emptied out every now and again. It was very, very basic, but she was happy. She took on the nomad life. That's because you can park your bus or your car or your RV, whatever it is that you have. I think the limit in most places, if you're in campgrounds, is 2 weeks. But the point is, you can't just sort of sit somewhere. Okay, somebody's going to correct me on this. BML, which I forget that term, but it's like free land, but it's usually out in the desert. Nobody wants it anyway, so they don't care if you sit there. Anyway, I digress. Okay, so we need the basics, a place to call home, even if it's just all your belongings in a storage unit and a post office box number. That is your point of reckoning. We need a base point to connect to. So people always say, where are you from? Where do you live? And our home base forms that answer. I could say, well, I'm from Orangeville. I live in Ontario. I'm a Canadian. So this lady, in the example, she was someone who examined herself and she made changes. So she didn't let complacency take over. Oh, well, this is what I've got. I have to stay here. So no, there's no complacency for her. Now, complacency can be a good thing. It can be a place of satisfaction and contentment. And some people are very content. And my thought is that if they don't sort of keep moving, they will die early. You've got to keep going. The more mobile we are, the better life is. So, and the healthier you'll be. Mobile means moving towards something. It doesn't mean, selling all your belongings and getting a bus like this lady did. Mobile means that we have something to move towards, like having a reason to get out of bed every day, having a plan, having a goal, whether it's short-term or long-term. And even if it's long-term, that means there's going to be steps that you have to complete, gradual things that you got to do to reach the long-term goal. So we need to have a dream, something to work towards. Without a dream, life is hard to live. I really believe that. Every day we need a reason to live. So set complacency aside and pursue a goal, a dream. So part of my dream is becoming more expert at knitting. Boy, as a task. Part of my dream is to use my senior years to indulge in creative activities. That's a choice I made even the few months leading up to my retirement. Part of my dream involves planning for camping and picnics and hikes. I know that those things are going to be different because I have less stamina, but I do have time. I would say to my husband, we don't need to rush this. We don't need to worry about it. We're not punching a clock here. We're not, which is an old-fashioned phrase. We're not, trying to meet deadlines here. unless it's, of course, you have an eye or doctor appointment or whatever, and or car appointment. You got to take the car in for servicing. Those kind of appointments are important, and we do have to complete those. But really, as a senior, you have more time to do a lot of things to accomplish even those deadline goals. So part of my spring summer dream is to visit 10 parks this summer and explore at least 5 campgrounds within an hour or so of where I live. That's my short-term goal for this season coming up. And that's not the complete list of goals. Of course, I want to do, planting seeds and garden and all that stuff. But you do want to have something that's a little bit different than previous years. It's a spice of life to engage you in a new way, mentally, emotionally, maybe even physically. So it has been said the reason to live must be more than work and paying bills, keeping your home clean, visiting family and friends. A reason to live needs to include a dream, and the dream should be bigger than your life, bigger than your routines, going beyond, adding something of interest, something new, something different, something that sort of sparks you and gives you a bit more life to I'm going to be heading towards the dream today, so I got to get up and get going and do that. Gives you a new reason to get up and get going. I know many seniors where their life is taken up with grandkids. 2 friends who have recently retired are spending most of their time looking after grandkids. And it dawned on me that those 2 people are women. And I think maybe they were just so used to looking after kids and making meals and doing all the stuff for the kids that now they just naturally fell into looking after grandkids. I think it's a wonderful task. It's very noble. I'm not against it. It's not something that I want to do. I'd like to do that part-time. But these women are making this like a full-time endeavor. Anytime her children need their children looked after, they're there. I'm not sure. I think, like I said, you need to have a dream that's bigger. You need to have a personal goal, a way of giving back and feeding back into your own life to make it interesting. Now, investing in relationships is always good, but at seniors, it can be important to have that personal goal. It can give you a long-term vision and short-term motivation, and you need that motivation. In essence, it gives you a reason to get up each day and to fully engage in life in a new way with interest. So as seniors, make the most of your time. It's not over yet. And I think that's what happens to some seniors. They're like, okay, well, I reached the end of the road here. Now I can just sit back and relax, get my rocker, and that's it. That's what I'm going to do. I think that we can remain healthy physically, mentally, and emotionally, which is a complete package, by engaging in something that's new, interesting, and stirs up a bit of passion for you. So, it's not over yet. I put out a short video on the no mistake shawl that you could just knit, and really it doesn't matter what you knit, there are no mistakes, and yet I kept running into mistakes on this shawl. One of the mistakes I made was I started it and set it aside for several weeks and then picked it up and couldn't remember how I was creating the initial eyelet effect. And so I ended up with a chevron effect or whatever, and it's not what I intended. And I was about to rip out the whole thing when I held it up and I looked at it and I said, why don't we just stop at this point, put a crocheted edging around it and call it a day. So I stopped struggling with this particular shawl. I figured out how to make it work for me regardless of the errors. Someone mentioned that the crochet sock yarn was really good to work with because it's a blend of wool and nylon. And I was knitting away in my socks, but I just found that it was too tedious. It was such small stitches, and it was just taking forever to knit up. So I did what a lot of knitters do. I decided to frog it. Or, well, let's say I am repurposing it. So I pulled out all the wool, and I got this idea that if I use two strands of the crochet sock wool together, that it actually knits up nicer. There's a nicer sort of thick mitt. Sometimes when you're working on a longer project, like a longer term goal in life, you want to pick a shorter term goal, a shorter project, something that you can complete maybe in a day or two. And for me, that was knitting the mittens. You do need to have that point of satisfaction, feeling like you've actually completed something, finished something. And so knitting up mitts has been that short stop measure for me this week. Meanwhile, I'm still working on my sweater, the Savannah pullover, which I pulled out a few times as well. But that's the perils of knitting and the fun and the challenge. So enjoy your life and keep moving forward.